Well,
Okay. Lots of background noise here. It's a good thing I'm a loud talker, so don't worry. You guys can attest to that, right? Used to talking over pinball machines. That makes your voice loud, doesn't it? Or boards, one of the two. There you go. More than just a computer bodyguard, are you? All kinds of skills. Yeah. Appreciate it. Let Paul get his stuff together back there. It's no fun working in the dark. Like I said, there's nobody behind me, so we can run over a little bit. That seems to be my specialty. Bring it down wherever you're comfortable. Yeah. The laser pointer there.
Do you want to leave the doors, at least one door open so people can?
Yeah. You can wander in if they want. Yeah. If it starts to get too crazy, somebody back there can't hear
There's a
anything.
trade-off between noise and accessibility.
Yeah, and I live right in the middle of there somewhere, so it's okay. So, welcome to the presentation. Thank you for coming. I'm real excited to be back in the Rocky Mountain Pinball Showdown. This actually was the first show I came to when I started discovering pinball stuff. There was actually a bunch of people out there doing the same things that I was doing in my garage. It's kind of fun. I've been working in pinball since I got a machine. I tell everybody you become a pinball owner and a pinball repairman on the same day, and you just don't realize it yet. But so learn how to fix them and all that. I've been doing it since about the mid '80s or so, working on my collection. I came to the show when they were back at the fairgrounds. You guys remember the Golden Colorado Fairgrounds? That's, yeah, I'm dating myself. They're talking about their 20th show coming up. I think I might have been at the first or second one. I was trying to determine which one there, but it was right around that 2004-05 time frame. And I was so excited being able to play games like Attack from Mars and Medieval Madness and things that I'd never seen before, but knew I wanted someday. And I've been able to get those now, so it's been kind of cool. My name is Butch Peel. For those of you who may not know me, I used to work for Jersey Jack Pinball until around COVID time frame, when me and Pat Lawler couldn't get along together anymore. So yeah, I had to go. Yeah, I started working at, I basically got let go by Jersey Jack on Friday and got called on Monday morning by Chicago Gaming Company. So now I work for Chicago Gaming Company. I am currently working on the manual for Pulp Fiction. And I keep telling Mark as we go along that this is going to be the best documented game ever. Now, future, past, wherever. But it's pretty crazy, the iterations that we go through with this company and making things right. And yeah, I know from you guys' perspective that just looks like it takes forever to get something done, but when it comes out, it's usually, top notch and very well made. And it's hard to criticize people for trying to get things right. And like the boss always says, they'll forgive late, but they won't forgive wrong. So it's been a little bit of a challenge in documentation, because I document something and then it changes and then I have to redocument it. I think I've drawn the bottom arch assembly on this game 4 times now, so it gets a little crazy in those circles, but it's really a lot of fun. It's a passion that I have. It's a labor of love. Like doing these shows. I mean, you see anybody that works at the Rocky Mountain Pinball Show, all these people that are volunteering their time, and the Nikolic family, which, basically everybody in the family's up there at that front desk at some time. Stop by and tell them thanks for doing what they do, because it's really great to be able to get together with people, love pinball, and let's all spend some time together. And it's because people like the Nikolic family and all these volunteers make it happen. So make sure you tell them thanks, because it's kind of a thankless task in the end, but it's a great thing that they do. So let's see here. Try and work here with different. If I can do a left-handed pointing here, probably can. Yeah, I think I might be able to handle that. So yeah, this been a long road coming through this Pulp Fiction thing. I think Mark might have considered Death by Jules a few times now, but we managed to talk him a lot off the leg. ledge and get him back in the game. It's frustrating when you're working on something as long as he has been on this game, and then we finally get it out to the public and everybody loves it, and then we have this Chicago gaming company cycle where it takes a while to get them out. So we are getting them out just as quickly as we can. We're going to have some game shipping. Fingers crossed, we'll have some games out there, plural games, by Expo next month. And they'll be doing a panel with Play Mechanix guys at Expo, so it'll be a lot of fun. So this idea was originally hatched at Play Mechanix, and it was hatched because Tarantino's people came to Play Mechanix and said, "You guys do games, right? Well, we'd like a Pulp Fiction video game." Is what it came across to begin with. And they approached Play Mechanix. Play Mechanix started working on something, and then they started getting better inroads to Quentin Tarantino's personal people, and they found out that it wasn't a video game they wanted; it was a pinball machine. And then, so they start working on an idea for a pinball machine. Then they talk to him a little further, and they find out, oh, he doesn't want you to make a pinball machine to sell. He wants a pinball machine. He wants you to build him one. And they're like, well, we kind of don't do that. So they kind of dropped it. And so, a lot of time's going by in between all of these different iterations. And then finally come back to, and he says, oh, okay, well, I'll license it to you, and you can make games, and we can go from there. So this is kind of one of the first iterations here, and it's just a concept photo. This, people like Canada like to look at this and say, oh, well, good God, if they hadn't gotten involved with Quentin Tarantino, that's what Pulp Fiction would look like. And it's like, no, that's not how it works. This is just a very quick mock-up. She uses some video and movie still images and things like that. But Mark had these great ideas of putting, he wanted a gun on the front panel. He had ramps. He had all these kind of different things on the play field. The video screen in the back box. All these new things. Great speaker system. Huge wide body game and all this. And Tarantino just immediately. You put it in and you're hoping for this kind of reaction from Tarantino, and you get this kind of reaction. He's not too happy, and you got some work to do. But this is a team effort. Everybody went to work right away. We were able to get Doug and CGC involved pretty early on. He was, Play Mechanix was kind of surreptitiously going to them and just saying, we need some parts, and we'd like you to build us a blank cabinet, and we'd like a blank play field, and these kind of things. And Doug started seeing what they were doing, and he's like, I pretty much know what you're doing, and I'd like to be involved with it. So he got involved with more and more with parts, and then became a development partner. So that was kind of a key moment in time when they actually shook hands and said, let's do this together. So then they started bringing in other people to work on the project, and communication was a big key here. This is one of our weekly teleconferences that we do. Josh hosts them down here, Josh Sharp. That's George Petro, who does the software. There's Mark up there. You can always tell who took the picture because everybody else looks like they're eating lunch or often, snacking on something or looking off and daydreaming. But we had people even locally. The team isn't co-located because Chicago Gaming Company is in Cicero, Illinois, and Play Mechanix is in Glen Ellen. And the Raw Thrills is in another portion of Chicago. And so, Josh is one place, Mark and George Petro in another place. We got mechanical engineers working on another location. You got myself in New Mexico. You got David Thiel in the Northwest up in Washington. So, everybody had to work using some of these team software packages and doing meetings very, very frequently, trying to all stay on the same page. So we had the complications that come about with COVID, of course, and one of those complications turned into a blessing because, George Petro is the president of Play Mechanix, and he's got a lot of things on his plate. And doing software for a pinball machine takes a lot of your time. Well, when all of a sudden your video games cabinet sales go completely to nothingness and nobody wants anything and everybody's staying home and all that, it came a perfect time to, rekindle some of his old interests, which was writing software. He used to work for Williams back in the day. So when they finally came back and tried to explain what they were looking for in this game, he saw the one with the wide body cabinet, the guns on the playfield, the ramps and all these things, And he says, and video screens, I don't want any of that. I don't want any of that new stuff. I want a retro game, you know, like the movie. So he said, I want a single level, no ramps, no video screens or DMDs. I want score displays, you know, like real old, you know, real time throwback retro kind of game. And he wanted hand-drawn art. He hated the idea of using pictures and stills from the movie itself. So, you know, he wanted somebody to draw the art, and if we couldn't do it, you know, Play Mechanix couldn't do it, he was going to offer his own artist to make it so, because that was important to him. He specifically vetoed a bunch of the iconic artwork and certain characters. So things like that scene right there, I wanted to put that on the cover of the manual. Mark wanted to put that on the back glass. You know, we were trying to put it on the play field somewhere. It was not allowed. Strictly, Tarantino said specifically, that stuff's not going to work. He says, oh, I have a retro movie, and I want it to have a retro look game to showcase it. And of course, movie sound clips will be available for use, but your music is not, because you guys have seen the Pulp Fiction soundtrack, movie soundtrack, a ton of really, really great music by a wide variety of artists. So we picked, I think, 5 tunes out of there, and were able to license those, but had to do that all separately, working under different licenses. So it's kind of a complex sort of thing. So you can kind of see why it moved so slowly. So the team itself, Mark Ritchie did the playfield layout and the concept. George Petro did the game software. Scott Pikulski did artwork for it, did all the hand-drawn artwork. Josh Sharp worked on the game rules. And it's kind of funny the way Josh Sharp got involved. He's the CFO of Raw Thrills, so he's the accountant guy, right? Well, all this time while they're developing and getting CGC stuff and paying for things and buying stuff, buying more pinball parts, he keeps seeing this PFP in these charge codes, you know, and he's like, what's PFP? And somebody finally tells him, well, they're working on a pinball machine over there. And he's like, what? I want to work. What can I do? You know, I'll do anything you want. I'll sweep the floors. I'll, you know, clean the toilets, whatever I can do to help. And next thing you know, he was doing the game rules. So that's kind of cool. David Thiel was under an exclusive sound and music license with Deeproot at the time. When this all came about, and as Deeproot kind of fell off and they kind of basically quit paying David, he contacted them. He and I were talking. Dave and I are really good friends, and Doug had asked me when I started working with CGC if I knew any sound guys, and I said, well, you know, I know the best out there, so how about that? And will that work? And he says, well, you know, I'll need to talk to him. So I talked to him, and he's like, you know, I think if I approach them and tell them, you know, that I can do some stuff on the side, and I still have to make money, and you're not paying me anyway, so can you let me out of the exclusive deal? And so they did. And so it worked out really well. The timing hit just about right. So our mechanical engineers, Pete Petrowski and Jordan Nardick are there in Chicago area also. Sam Zaire, who did extensive work on the software and everything for the remake games. He's Mr. Remake, who knows the CGC board system and their whole software system really well. So he was able to help George track his software and get it guided into the CGC world of board and electronics and stuff. So that's Dave Orman that did all the electronics and designed the game boards. Mark Flending and Matt Reister were the ones who did the sculptures and things for the game. Sean Wilson, Jim Thornton, Cody Gerard, myself, Doug Duber in production, and I'm also working on documentation in the manual. And I'm also involved in this whole team works together on everything, and everything we talk about it as one. And my area of concern, the things that I bring to the table is I have a lot of experience with games and working on them and fixing them and documenting them and keeping them going on location. So I'm looking at everything through a lens of, you know, reliability and maintainability and serviceability and accessibility and all those kinds of things, trying to keep people that design the pinball machines from doing the things that people that design your cars do, you know, where they, you know, make it where you have to take everything off to get to an air filter underneath on your engine. We don't want that. We don't want sharp objects. We don't want things that are going to break, things that are going to need to have wear parts replaced on them. You got to have accessibility to them. So all those kind of things. Nick Petro and Ryan White did our marketing and sales. And then Zach Meany and Matt Wilson did our promo videos. Zach Meany did the 45-minute documentary with all the different people, and then Matt did all of the really short videos of showing the gameplay and the movie tie-ins and all that stuff. Really, really good work on both those guys' part. Oh, so you're gonna have different models of this game. We have the base model, which is our standard edition. Those are the two games that are out there right now. They have the Jules and the Vincent and Royale with cheese and gold watch sculpts. Those are on all the different games, not just LEs. There's no lighting, sound, gameplay, assembly, no differences at all. The game plays just and sounds just like it does for an LE. Same stainless armor and trim and coin door. It's all the same. There's no powder coating or anything like that on the limited edition, so it looks very similar. The limited edition has the Bad Mother flipper wallet mounted on the bottom arch. It's a nice little sculpt with the black place in the center there for the limited edition game number to be put on. It's got a chrome decorated speaker grill with the Chicago Gaming and the Play Mechanix pinball logos on it. Very cool looking. I thought that was kind of neat, actually, what Doug did with the neck there of the game. He kind of came up with that all on his own. It's like, this should look kind of like a either the grill of a car or the speakers and stuff coming down. It really turned into like a dashboard kind of look. It was a really good look. Cabinet mirror blades, which, I'm not a really big cabinet mirror blade guy usually, but when you have a single level play field and all of these sparkly things all over, and you can see the reflection of the reflection of the reflection in each of those, it adds so much depth to that cabinet. It's quite amazing, and it's something that you can add to the standard edition pretty easily. So I would recommend it. It really looks good on the game. We had a Pulp Fiction banner. Of course, as soon as I showed this banner in Texas, somebody ripped it off and started making them, selling them online. So it's like, people, come on, man. I'm trying to show you guys what cool things we're going to get here, and people are taking it and trying to make money off it and rip us off, of course. Gotta love it. Shaker motor in the LE that won't be in the standard, but it can be added again to the standard. And then you've got your Jackrabbit Slims topper that's just out of this world. I got mine a couple of months ago, my topper. I had my game back in December. I have a prototype that I used to when I write documentation, but man, this thing just is amazing. And Dave kind of brought up an interesting, David Thiel, he brought up an interesting point. He's like, the light show on this, now with these games that have these big monitors and these big back glasses that aren't really back glasses anymore, they're just, with a big one single bright light behind them, that this game still has general illumination and RGB that goes up through the back glass and through the topper. So these washes in color that you can do, the whole machine changes color all the way up to the top of the topper, and it's really a cool effect that you don't get with these newer type games. This retro game really shines in that way. We have a coin-op edition. The regular edition has this stainless steel and chrome door, which we retooled and did. I mean, we saw people online. We must have done well, because people online were saying, they must have found an old cache of those old coin doors or something and used them. It's like, wow, you really don't know how things work with pinball, do you? Okay, that's all right, though. I'm going to explain it to you. We had this whole thing retooled, had all this redone, and what's cool about it's got the inside. It's got the hat parts, so it's the normal things you're used to seeing when you open the door, but the face is all different, and it really looks amazing. So the one shortfall was there's no dollar bill acceptor capability in that door. So we made an operator edition game that has a cabinet mounted start button like normal, a typical hat door with the dollar bill acceptor, and same price as your standard edition. If you want to put one on location, a dollar bill acceptor, there's your boy. So I'm going to take you on a little bit of a chronological trip through the development and building of this Pulp Fiction game. And so we have the award for the oldest photo goes to Scott Pikulski. That's Scott right there. This is at the Pinball Magic game release back in, I think, 96 or something like 1995. That's right about the time that Pulp Fiction came out, or like the year after. And so he did the artwork package for Pulp Fiction now, but back then he was doing dots and animation work for Pinball Magic for Capcom. And I just, I was going to make one more comment there that it was pretty crappy of those guys to choose the, Casual Friday for their photo session there and not tell Scott. That was a really bad thing to do. Not nice. So here we are with Mark gets his cabinet from Chicago Gaming Company, and he's just like an artist with a blank canvas in front of him, and it's just really cool. You can imagine it, we can model it, so we can start modeling. That's always a good first step. So do some three-dimensional modeling here. You can see in the early on, even in this game, a lot of the pieces that are on the game out there on the floor are there already in this first concept before they ever cut anything, made anything. You had the gun in the play field, you had the pawn shop in the center with the 3 drop targets, you had 3 inline drop targets here going to a feed here. Mark's idea was if I can't have a ramp on the play field, I'll hide one behind the back panel, and I'll hide things under the play field, the subway, and things like that, where you can have 2 physical ball locks in this game, which is amazing these days. Usually they don't even have one now. And this one can hold all 4 balls here or all 4 balls across the back panel back there. And his original idea, you'll see in some of these photos and some of these drawings, early drawings, he was trying to find a way for the balls to all end up in the briefcase. And what's in the briefcase, when it turns around, it spits the balls out. It's pinballs that were in there, so it's kind of cool.
What time frame is this?
This is way back in 2018. Yeah, that's when we got to this point of it, and it started even before that. So yeah, it's very, very old. You also see the top saucer there. You got the 3 pop bumpers. You got a lot of the even artwork here. There's Vince and Mia dancing up there, and like I say, the gun down here. A lot of things, but this whole area in here, they had big problems with when Tarantino saw this. He didn't like a lot of that at all. And here's some other 3-dimensional modeling stuff, trying to show how he was going to kick those balls out and make it look like they came out. And they still do even to this day. It looks like they almost come out of the briefcase, so that's kind of cool. So in the original game, there was actually a captive ball in here with a target up there. And there was a second magnet in the game right in front of that. So what the idea was, when you shot up there and you hit the captive ball up into that target, it would grab the ball and hold it there and start your roll scene stuff. And that turned out to be kind of problematic. When you hit these targets, a lot of times, especially a captive or a Newton ball, you end up ricocheting off in weird directions. You don't get a true bounce straight back unless you hit it just like dead on, like those little balls that hang and smack each other. It doesn't work very well on a pinball playfield, so they had to move on from that idea. But I think he even has spinners on both sides here. I mean, just a man with a plan, knew exactly what he wanted to do. We had, 4 banks on the side originally here, because I'll show you with the artwork here. He was trying to spell, I'm going to show this as it comes down, but here at the top, you were spelling kahuna to begin with. So there was a K-A, and then the huna stuff was at the bottom of the play field. And you can see even early on the 666 giving the combination for the briefcase, so you could send the ball up there. There's your Newton ball, captive ball that would bounce up here and hit targets and roll scenes. Kind of look the same. There's where that magnet would have been. There's the dancers, like I said, knew right off the bat, retro pop bumper caps. Those were going to be the way to go. Really cool stuff. Even had the 2 lanes at the top, the controlled lane, so you could force the ball to drop into the saucer or let it go complete orbits when you want to. In the middle of the play field here, where Tarantino had 2 big problems. He didn't like the way Pulp Fiction was all broken up. The word Pulp Fiction is really hard to read and kind of strange. And he hated the character choices in the middle of here. He says, get Butch and Marcellus off that play field right now. I mean, and you don't get to ask, hey, why is that, Quentin? You don't get to ask that. When the licensor says you do it, you do it. And so, you just have to abide. And so they took, the idea was to have all these people that kind of had this guy in common in the middle, and it just all fell apart when he started picking and choosing who could be on there. So you get down to the bottom, the photorealistic artwork, again, he didn't like that at all. Here's the rest of the kahuna part that you're trying to spell with link chains and things like that. But yeah, the gun was there. It had a lot of the look that it has today. So the first cut whitewood playfield is here, leaning against the wall, and you can see the inserts in there. They changed the blue into the center because that was going to be the key one to make when you got a skill shot. You can see now that you're seeing the words Pulp Fiction are all together and easy to read in the center of the playfield. Start paring down the sides of the targets here. There was 4 up here before, now there's 3. In the games out there's only 2. Just don't need that many things on the sides going back and forth. You see the ball return over here is just like it is now. Same thing in the center here, we're going to have the subway and the ball lock back here, and then the ball lock back here. So it looks, you can tell early on that a decision was consciously made that this retro game is not going to have RGB LED inserts. It's going to have LED inserts for the most part. There are going to be a few that we want to change in here, and we'll determine those later. But we're going to make extensive use of colored inserts. And it's kind of the same thing that you get when you compare digital printing to silkscreen printing. It's just so much more beautiful depth in the color and all that. When you put a cool white light behind a purple insert, you just get a really cool purple color that you just can't recreate very well with a clear insert and an RGB LED that's like this big behind it. It just doesn't give you the same effect. So there was a conscious effort up front that we're gonna light this game like they did in the old days, but with newer technology. So we gotta get that thing in Mark's hands, and that's what you call a happy designer there, getting his game and ready to go until he realizes that there's some wiring required here. So you pull the playfield out and nothing is connected to nothing. That's a very sobering moment right there, man, because there are a lot of coils being used in this game. There are a lot of more even lights. You saw the inserts that in that previous picture. All of those are going to have lights behind them. How are you going to do that? But you just got to get started wiring. You got to buy you some wire. You ever wonder how much it would take to wire? About that much. And that actually just gets you started. And they ended up having to buy more wire. And you're going to see here with this spaghetti stuff and later on how bad it got. But the good news is that the front side of the playfield's all cleared and everything, all your inserts and everything. And it looks like it's pretty well ready to flip. It's got the ball guides, it's got hosts, and the layout is pretty much like it is out there. It's really kind of cool to see this far back how near it was to what it turned out to be. So let's fast forward about 2 years. No, actually, just kidding. It's about 6 months. A little Richie magic and a lot of putting in pins and soldering and splicing and things like that. This is what you get, the wiring mess over here. So he did have a little help along the way. That's George. George is an electrical engineer by training also. So there, you can tell by the confused look on Mark's face there, who the electrical engineer is on this. Like, this little guy is going to control that. And now what? Say that again? It looks kind of funny there. So you got other elements that are evolving in this time too. While they're wiring up the playfield, they're starting to come up with the ways that we're going to get the ball on and off the playfield, and our ball lock back behind here. We got a ball popper that's been in development now, and a way to feed those balls back. It kind of changed from early on. They were going to feed those balls back and kind of hide it from you, and they were just going to come out of the right orbit and roll down the right orbit. When it turned out that they put this chute going right next to your pop bumpers and just decided to feed them directly to your right flipper, which works pretty good too. So the advent of prototyping for using 3D printers, that's really cool. I mean, who knew you could make a briefcase out of gray spaghetti, but there it is, proof positive. It's a kind of an iterative process. You get your size, your shape, your dimensions, and you find out how the fit and function is going to occur. And then you can get down to really nice 3D printed parts that you can use for real prototyping. And it's an iterative process. You just keep going over and over, and then maybe you chew a hole in the plastic here and mount the whole thing in there and see how it's going to look in the game. And it makes it look a lot further along than it really is with the hand-painted stuff and all that. It's nice to have a guy like Matt on call where you can give him parts and just tell him, paint these up and we'll put them back on. They're just 3D printed stuff. So we're gonna, along this point, we're working on the artwork too. We're gonna need a back glass. So here's a real early scribble here of the back glass. And you look at that and you're like, wow, that's a big mess. But you actually can start to see some of the things, the pieces are coming together. There's 4 windows there for your score displays. You got your credit and ball and play displays in here. You're already thinking that you better leave room for game over and tilt and things like that in the back glass, things that you haven't had to put in a back glass in quite a long time now. You can also start to see the characters around you. You're like, looks like everybody's kind of gathered around this table or stage or something like that. And you see 2 main characters on either side, and you can even tell that they're holding guns. They've got guns in their hands. This one looks like he's even got a briefcase in his hand. And then who's this in the center here, and what are they doing? But you're drawing a lot of attention to whoever that is. So kind of cool that you can look at how it progressed and see those elements in there. You can see the girl in the center is Mia, of course, and then decided let's incorporate things like maybe a jukebox or something like that to show the ball and playing credit. It's very cool. So now clean it up a little bit and take it a little farther. Now you can see that's definitely a woman in the center there, and she's dancing, and she's up on a stage here. You see somebody back here with rabbit ears. That's either Honey Bunny or Jack Rabbit Slims, who it turned out to be. Start to see the player displays, 1, 2, 3, 4 in there. Those are added in. So it's just really cool to watch that develop. And again, you see the guns in their hands and these guys here, and you see the briefcase now is becoming a much more prominent thing. In fact, it's all lit really well in the new back glass, and it's really cool the way it all came together. Scott did an amazing job on that, being that was his first art package and all. So we're going to need some sculptures. And everything starts with models, of course. And I'm sorry, did I break your concentration? Right there, there's the look on his face. You put all these things in the computer, and if you can model them in the computer, then you can make a 3D print, and you can start hand painting them and making them look. This is my age Vincent here. I'm proud of my gray hair too. Nice. That's a little creepy with the eyes like that, but it's just another stepping stone where you can check the form and fit, put these on the play field now, left and right, get an idea for size and scale and everything. Looks good. How much interference you're going to have with other existing pieces, like, the briefcase is going to be rotating in front of him. And then the whole reason for him being there is so that the briefcase can light up his face. And we talked about how that we tried so many different, you wouldn't believe, at CGC this is how it goes, but we spent like days, it seems like, looking at the lights, the LEDs inside that briefcase to make it light up his face just right. No, we need an orange one. No, we need 2 yellow ones, and then we use inserts, and we'll color the light, and we'll put these starburst ones in there so it diffracts and reflects weird, and just back and forth until it's just right. And Doug says, okay, I'll sign off on that, and then it goes out the door. Kind of cool. Oh, meanwhile, back in Mark's personal wiring nightmare, like, holy crap, look at this thing. So you get all this in there, and now here's your poor little solenoid driver board, and then over here is your play field, and all of these wires. What a mess. And now you got to get that in there. This is the part where you think, oh crap, I forgot to put all those wires through the neck. So now you got to take all that loose and put that back in. You got to love pinball. It'll humble you at every possible turn. Yeah. So a quick solution to a difficult problem, we'll take the board loose and lay it in the bottom of the cabinet for this prototype, and then we'll just make this pile of spaghetti down here, add a few meatballs, and you'll be good to go. So he puts all that stuff in there. He puts a piece of plastic on top of it to keep it from shorting anything, and then lower the play field very slowly, and then nobody gets back in there again, right? Comprende? You're going to get screwed if you do. There's Mark to tell you so. So once you get that play field down, it literally is. You're not picking that up again. Those cables and wires and everything are catching on everything. You've got everything where it's kind of not being tugged on real bad. And so now it's time to bring this creation to life. Now we've got some connections to the lights. And this original, the first whitewood actually had the old 47 and 5, I think it was all 47 actually, type 44 type bulb sockets underneath. They were all wired in. So it was done with kind of an incandescent lighting just to get started. And then we start putting in some LED boards to make that work. So here's early on. And this when you got a dead Hulk and it's been that way for all this time. You got these great ideas in your mind of what it's going to look like. This is exciting stuff right here. Just seeing a few of the lights start doing, chase patterns. You can see the ones for the 5 characters in the center of the screen there, or in the center of the play field. Then you get a few more of them working. Now you start to see the power of those colored inserts and what that adds to the play field, how much color that brings to the party. And then here's the final one, just for a side-by-side comparison. How it, even early on, this stuff still, translated right into the final version really well. Pretty amazing. But in pinball, we know that real life begins with flippers. You got to be able to shoot that game. So here's Mark playing the early Whitewood game. I call this mission get Pulp Fiction, or pawn shop frenzy is what, or pawn shop multi-ball is what he's trying to get. He has to knock all 3 drop targets down before he can put the ball in the center there and it actually stay. So you see he does it a couple of times and he keeps kicking the ball out because there's 1 drop target still standing there that he has to knock down. Same rules as today. Mute that. Whoops. I go back in there. Sorry about that. Wow, that thing took me all the way to the end. Now I'm going to have to, excuse me. Technical difficulties. Let me move down there to that again. Sorry about that. Trying to find my mute thing with no light up here. It's very difficult. And there and there. Current slide, go. Let me get my phone so I can see this time. Start it up again. Sorry about that. Mark's okay with it. Oh man, I was way off. Mute's way over there. Mark gets a little colorful too, maybe while he's playing, so we can't have his sound on there. You can see him shooting there. He's trying to. They did have some background sound and things going on. That was kind of cool. But he's trying to get the ball into the here and start multi-ball. Early on in the game, there was actually a plastic. You'll see it here in just a minute. There was a plastic over here with Butch on it that's on there still now. But it actually had 3 inserts underneath it where there were lights under them. And those were your 3 ball locks for the pulp, for the pawn shop. I keep saying pulp. But the pawn shop would show its 3 locks right there on the left-hand side. So you see 2 of them still blinking. One's unsolid, so he's got 1 locked. We later moved that over the pawn shop. So the 3 lights are much easier to see when you're trying to decide what to do. And I'm glad to see I'm not the only one that has that problem or that one when you're trying to shoot that stupid thing. That's the designer himself going off the side.
We're going.
Yeah. And he's going to get it going here in a minute. Mark's one of those guys who likes to slap the sides of the cabinet quite a bit. I always give him a hard time about that. So you know how many flipper buttons break because of people doing that? So it's the way I play, man. Okay. Now he's got 2 solid, 1 more need for multi-ball. Yeah, oh man, that's a good save right there. I would have been done. And here comes his 3-ball multi-ball. Well, that's pretty cool stuff to be able to flip and do things like that. And there hadn't been very many games played on this when that video was taken. That's pretty amazing. That's quite a long time ago too. Again, we're talking well before I started there in 2020. So that's 3 years ago. Spotting accuracy on these early play fields, on every play field, is very critical. You've got so many different things mounted to the top and the bottom of the play field that each side has its own routing and drilling. Some of the holes go actually completely through the play field, but others are made to go partially in. They're routing out places around the magnets and things on the surface. You're routing out around these holes so that the ball drops in there nice, and these ball traps and things on the side. So there's a file for each side, and every time you put one of these together and you change something and a mounting hole moves or circuit board changes a little bit, you've got to keep track of all that so that the next time you cut it, it keeps track of all those. You take away holes, you put other holes in, you change the location of others. Here's another big milestone now when you can actually put the artwork on top of that. And being that Chicago Gaming Company makes all of their own playfields, that's a pretty easy thing for us to do. It's just a different part of the building that does the silk screening and stuff. So the routing's all done here, you know, the wood and everything, the development's done up in the front. It's just a one-stop shop, so it's easier to get to this point here. And we had some clear coat, which really puts some depth into that silk screen playfield. And you know, it's just gorgeous when you get to see that at your first time. It takes your breath away. I think this one might too. Yeah, this is the early Jimmy playfield, Jimmy. We'll show that again here in a minute. But yeah, you watch this all this time and nobody realizes that Jimmy's name is spelled Jimmie in the credits and all. Who does that? Thanks you, Quentin. Yeah, messed us up pretty good there for a while. But his people didn't even catch it for a long time. And here's some more of those. You know, Ezekiel's kind of a difficult one to spell too, so it really only has one IE section in it. That's what it should look like. On cabinets, playfields, there's Jimmy with a Y. And we fixed that too. And we did pretty quickly. That was right before Texas that we had to get new playfields made and put that on there. It's pretty cool. What we need next, we need some plastics. So here's a first cut, no pun intended, at plastics. Lot of red. And you notice that when you put it on the playfield, boy, it really looks like a little too much maybe. So we can take that again, we can model with our artwork, with our plastics artwork, with our 3D pop bumpers and flippers and things like that. And we can start to see how it's gonna look. Tweak, add a little more colors to it, some oranges, we've added some yellows, a lot more yellows to it. So, you know, tune that red down just a little bit. Oh, I was going to show you too in that previous one there. There's the Butch plastic with the 1, 2, 3 ball locks on it before we added the pawn shop locks up there. It's kind of another snapshot in time there. Placeholder back glass. You could take the artwork and print it on a piece of acetate or clear piece of plexiglass, and you can then put that on the game, and you start learning things like, you know, little LEDs for GI or for purposes of troubleshooting and making sure you got voltages and all this kind of stuff. Those don't work really well when you're going to put it up against a back glass like that. That's going to show through really bad, and this really brings it to light, no pun intended again, right off the bat. It's like, that's got to change. But that gives us an opportunity to go in and position all of the boards, all of the flashers. You notice all the little GI and flasher boards back there, the GI strips running across here, 3 of them, 2 in front, behind Pulp Fiction, 1 here. And then they have a flasher behind every character's face. And every time those characters speak, you'll notice in the game, the flasher behind them in the back glass, the flasher behind them on the playfield, and even when you have the topper, Mia and Vince, if they have a saying, they'll turn towards you and speak with a flasher underneath them, flashing while they're talking, and they'll turn back towards each other. So it's kind of cool. Now there's the Mad Tinker, the Juba, my boss. And that's a perfect mad scientist pose there. So me and Mark, I was teasing him on this photo. We're really kindred spirits, because whenever it comes to leveling a pinball machine, I'll be damned if I don't look down. I'm the guy on the floor again. I'm the guy doing the turtling while someone else is reading. And I keep telling him, we gotta be quicker to say, I'll read the level, you get underneath the game, you know. That why it's always the old guy that ends up under there. That's just not right. So we got the COVID days, everybody's working with masks, and they started working in smaller groups, and, you know, social distancing and all that. And everybody asked, you know, who's that in the blue dress there? I'm like, oh snap, that's Josh Sharp. That's our back glass holder and rules guy. George's basement they moved into even during COVID. Everybody's working with masks, and developments continues. Can't go to work, but we can go to George's house and go work on the game in the basement. That makes the time go by. I don't know if any of you saw on Pinside the leaked photo. We're trying to, you know, choreograph and time and get all this release stuff out right as we're going to show the game the first time in Texas. So we We had all this big marketing plan in place, 7 days prior to Texas Pinball Festival, we're doing this. 6 days prior, we're doing this. The day before, we're doing this. And of course, right in the middle of all this stuff that we're leaking, all these teasers and things like that with no showing of the game, somebody leaks a photo to Pinside, and it just kind of goes like crazy viral. And people are looking at this and they're, oh my God, I hope that's not it, because it looks so horrible. That's going to be terrible. Oh, the doom and gloom, a hamburger, why would they do that? Oh my God, it's gonna be horrible. And the Eeyores come out of the damn woodwork like crazy. Oh, no matter, I wasn't going to get it anyway. It probably doesn't have cussing in it either. They just go on and on and on. You can read it for about 30 minutes, and then you just like, it just seems like lather, rinse, repeat. The same guys saying the same things over and over and over again. Well, I happen to be doing the Texas Pinball Festival presentation when I saw this online. Somebody sent me a link to it, and I found the actual photo that it was taken from. And of course, the other geniuses online are all saying, oh, well, God, look at that horrible cell phone photo. I'm like, have you taken a picture with your cell phone lately? You can't make them look that bad. I'm telling you, that is deliberately pixelated, deliberately blurred using, something like a Photoshop or something like that. But the photo was of this basic game. When I started, this is what the game looked like, and it was sitting in Chicago Gaming's office. I recognize that background, and the engineering office there. And somebody decided to, hype the game a little by showing somebody they trusted a photo, and off it went. And then somebody I think decided, well, if I blur it all up, I'm not really showing the photo that they showed, and I can be the guy that has the picture and. Pinside, you gotta love it. It's worse than any soap opera you can imagine. But there's the picture, and the game survived somehow that horrible release and all that talking. But if you lifted that playfield up, this is where that picture came from chronologically in time. And if you lift that playfield up, this is what the game looked like underneath. So now we've got next generation wiring. We don't have 44 sockets anymore. We've got individual LED boards on all of these. Now this is where we start choosing which ones get cool white, which ones get warm white, and you can use just a regular tiny little modular board and solder the wire in there and see what it looks like. See if this one's going to need 1 LED or 2 LEDs or a grouping of 3 LEDs. See which ones are going to be RGB LEDs, those sorts of things. Figure out where your wiring harnesses are going to go. Figure out how these are going to fit on main boards, because Chicago Gaming Company has gigantic circuit boards underneath their playfield. And this is why they have them, to avoid all these wiring messes like this. Now all these wires become traces on a large circuit board. It makes things so much easier. And then you can run all of the circuit wire or traces can go out to the edges, and where they plug into switches, like the rollovers for the in and out lanes, then you just have a short jumper wire going out to a switch that you plug into a connector. Very clean. It saves a lot of this mess. You can also start to figure out the layout of those. What are the shapes of those are going to be? What kind of power are we going to need? And how many wires are we going to have to bring from the back box and the power supply and all that? So this is just kind of walking down the playfield there. You can see the mess in the bottom with all of and this is all spliced wires. You're trying to use cables from other games and things that have the proper end on one end, and that you can cut and splice on the other end, or solder in place. And man, you start to see you're going to have some real big problems when you have 3 drop targets in line like that. When you have a kicker back behind a drop target, things start getting close together, and then you're losing clearance, and you're going to have places that a lot of moving objects and things under the playfield, which are, a wire is worst enemy is a moving object, jet bumpers and things like that. It's gonna, you can start to see where your headache areas are going to be. We tried a few other things along the way. I really like this candy red, very shiny, cool, powder coated. It's like a 2 or 3 step powder coating process for the ball kick up cage there, but it couldn't withstand. Started having red flakes all over the playfield, because when the ball pounds up into here, it was chipping the stuff off, and you don't want that long term. So we went ahead and went with chrome, much more durable. Kept trying to get this image in there somewhere. Oh, let's put it on the scorecards. Hell no, get that out of there. It was the answer every single time. You can't trick them. Could try. So building a topper, here's how the topper came to be. I remember the first time I went in and saw this in person. You know, pictures don't do it justice. It's just too hard to photograph. It's so intense, the lighting and the hues here. It really screws up cameras. But the first time, you know, Doug went in and found this LED strip that looks like neon, and it is the most coolest thing. And when it went on there, and it's RGB, so it could change colors. It was bright red, it's bright yellow, it's red, blue, it's orange. It was just the coolest thing. It was really hard to photograph. So turn off the lights and everything, and you can start to see all the different things that are involved here. There's a lot of accent lighting going on here. There's RGB LEDs in this area to accent these guys in front. There's a background lighting behind the front of Jackrabbit Slims. There's individual LED channels for the Jackrabbit Slims. There's like 9 different channels of stars up in here, so you could twinkle them at different times and different intensities. I mean, just headlights for the cars are there. I mean, crazy. And then at the very end, it's like, well, we want these guys to have a flasher of their own, so they mount flashers down in here so we can get a flash on them while they're turning and talking to you. And then, of course, the 2 motors underneath where you can spin these 2 guys and have them doing the twist. Just really cool. Very iconic scene in the movie, and it translated really well into this topper. This is why you need a manual, because you get all these cables coming down here and what goes where. When you're a woodworking company, that's how you can make a base like that for your topper. It's routed out at 4 different levels in 3 different areas, and clips inside, and room for countersinking everything and all that. That's just you know, messing around with a routing table, and then you can change that and add things and take things away. Just make it all line up with the hole on the top of the cabinet, and you'll be golden. So it's a really cool day when you get to take Quentin Tarantino, his game, his personal Pulp Fiction Pinball Machine. This happened actually a year ago, right around this time. It was right before Expo that we were trying to get him his game, and then he could officially sign off on it. There was some ideas that we could show at Expo last year, and we kind of thought, well, we weren't quite ready yet. We'd wait for Texas the next year. But in the meantime, we got his game ready, and part of the approval process was getting him a game that he could see in his house, and everybody would sign off on it, and he'd give it the thumbs up. So you wonder, where's the topper on this game? Well, there's a big no confidence vote for the baggage handlers at the airport. You bring it, you're that guy that takes up 3 overhead spaces and 2 other people can't put their suitcase up there. But that's what you got to do. These things are very fragile. When you 3D print stuff like that, I mean, those cars and the figures, when you 3D printed one of those cars, it was like start the printing and come back day after tomorrow and see how it turns out. It took that long to do. And any glitch in there created an actual car wreck. I mean, they looked terrible. It was like